Ghost of Tsushima, a PS4 exclusive which was produced by Sucker Punch, a company who was also involved with creating the infamous franchise dealing with supernatural humans with powers. Ghost of Tsushima takes place in 13th century Japan, during the age of when the samurai governed the land for the people. This was also during the time when the Mongols, in even history, invaded Tsushima. After the game starts with the battle at Komoda Beach with the Mongols, you fail there and then you are rescued by a woman named Yuna, who nurses you back to health after the failed battle. While you had your battle at Komoda Beach with the Mongol invaders, your grandfather, Lord Shimura, was with you on the battlefield. The samurai had failed in their battle against the Mongols, and your grandfather was captured. You must then save your uncle from the captured territory of Castle Shimura, as the Mongols hold it as their current territory. You play as a man named Jin Sakai, born of the clan Sakai, to then embark on his journey while having to stick to the Bushido Code, a code of honor from samurai warriors. The gameplay in this game is both fun and a bit clunky, as there's no lock-on in the game, so when you're not directly facing an enemy a certain way, you'll go in the opposite direction, hitting air. It takes a bit getting used to, but it definitely feels kinda odd. When approaching an enemy stronghold, you have two choices: sneak and assassinate Mongols, or call out to them and have a samurai duel with them to start the battle, honoring your enemy and fighting them head on. In this game, similar to other open world games like Spider-Man, God of War, or Horizon Zero Dawn, you have a skill tree that allows you to purchase new moves with skill points that you gain from fighting in enemy strongholds, progressing in story events, or even side quests. Later on, you can add more abilities to do after you finish a duel, allowing you to kill other enemies in succession after finishing a duel, which is pretty neat. It can even the odds even more to compare to you when you first started the game. They are optional duels, so you don't have to do them all the time, but they definitely help you even the odds a little. Outside of short standoff samurai duels, when fighting enemies in groups, you have two different attacks. You have your heavy attack and light attack for quick slices. I did play this game on hard mode, and before the update that Sucker Punch added being the hard difficulty, but regardless, the game still kicked my ass a ton. There are other difficulties, of course, like medium, normal, and so on when you first turn on Ghost of Tsushima that you can choose from. And while playing the game, you can change the difficulty whenever you like. If you feel like the game is too hard or too easy, you can raise the difficulty or lower the difficulty at any time. Now, since Jin has light attacks and heavy attacks, with his heavy attacks he is able to break his opponent's guard, and from that he is able to do more damage. With some enemies he is able to stun lock them and do heavy attacks repeatedly until they die, but not all enemies can. You cannot do this on all enemies, and even bosses even. With bosses you'll have to be able to parry their attacks, and then after that you can reward yourself with breaking their guard and then doing even more damage to them. Bosses. Earlier I told you there are 3 different kinds of enemy attacks that you'll be witnessing in the game. And I told you one is without color grading. The other 2 is being one, there is a blue hue color that you'll see from enemies, which means you'll be able to parry those. Red color hues mean that you cannot parry the attack, so you must dodge the attack, as it is unblockable and you cannot block the attack. So you have to dodge the attack, and then as the opponent is recovering, you attack them. So yeah, you definitely can't just mash in this game, which is a good thing. The combat is pretty fun and it doesn't get boring, thankfully. It has a nice weight to it when you're slicing down enemies, killing them to then sheathe your sword after cleaning the blood off it. Going further into combat, you'll gain 5 different stances which are good for specific enemies. For example, the water stance is good to use against opponents with shields, as it is the stance you use to break their guard. You cannot use this stance to break the stance of a person with a spear. the water stance is not meant to break people's guard when they have spears. Only the wind stance can do that. So vice versa, you need to use a stance for a specific enemy. And you start the game off with the stone stance, which is basically used for dealing with Mongols that only have one sword in one hand. You can't always take on multiple enemies as there will be a lot of them, especially in bigger campsites, which is why you must sneak sometimes and assassinate them from the shadows. You can hide in tall grass similar to other AAA games, go on top of rooftops and surprise enemies from above, and later on in the game you'll be able to get other gadgets like a wind chime that you can throw, which will divert enemies' attentions to then go check out what that noise was that you threw, and they'll go check that out, allowing you to sneak past them from behind. Sneaking in Ghost of Tsushima isn't the greatest. I mean, there's only one franchise that does it the best. But the sneaking is fine, and the kill animations are cool. You can definitely get spotted if you don't use your focused hearing, which is what the game calls it, to detect enemies and see them through walls to know where they are. Think of focused hearing in Ghost of Tsushima like when you are able to see through walls like in The Last of Us. Combat as well, you'll also be able to fight at range. You'll soon get a bow in a main quest from a samurai associate named Sensei Ishikawa, which allows you to shoot archers, other bow users, at a long range to pick them off with your own bows. Or you can hold the block button, and while blocking you will be able to automatically parry archers' bow arrows and slice them, allowing you to get past them and get in close. Generally, archers are very easy to deal with compared to groups of enemies or bosses, but I think that's fine. There is one type of enemy I don't like very much in Ghost of Tsushima, and that is the black dog that randomly patrol Mongol encampments. Their attacks are very sudden, and all of their attacks are unblockable, and when you're not paying attention they can bite you and drag you around a little bit after an attack they got you with. They are a little annoying, not gonna lie, but doable to take down. In combat as well, you have your health bar and your yellow meters that are basically your resolve. You gain resolve by parrying and killing enemies. It is a meter that is used to heal Jin in combat. The meter can also be used to perform mythical techniques that can help you deal with groups of enemies. The one sacred move I used constantly was Heavenly Strike, an unblockable attack that strikes through the opponent and deals a decent damage. Now, you unlock mythic techniques in different ways from how you unlock stuff from the skill tree. You only unlock mythical techniques by completing specific tasks throughout the world, or should I say side quests, which you'll then be able to use these moves and unlock them. Now that basically covers the majority of combat from what I've talked about, including the stuff and how I feel about that. There are bosses, and again, I did play on hard mode, and on that difficulty they gave me a hell of a run for my money. They are, for the most part, the bosses, they fight the exact same way, which is disappointing, but are still tough, at least in my opinion. Now to talk about the customization in Ghost of Tsushima. You will be wearing a many different facet amount of outfits with different stats and how those stats add to you in combat. Throughout the game, you're doing main quests and side quests. It'll eventually allow you to gain craftsmen that can upgrade your armor, swords, bow, your kunai, etc. and improve those stats. You can also change your armor back to how it used to look if you so choose. And you don't have to wear a hat or a helmet if you don't want to, which is a very nice inclusion to have, and it's something to appreciate with the customization that I really dig in Ghost of Tsushima. The Traversal in Ghost of Tsushima is interesting to say the least. You can follow the wind that guides you with a slide of your finger on the middle button on the PS4 controller, which will lead you forward toward your current objective in the world. Ghost of Tsushima's map is basically filled with clouds for the most part generally, and it only starts to clear up the clouds from your map when you first venture into the island of Tsushima, which basically then reveals itself. Later on in the game, you will be getting a grappling hook that you can swing towards things with, which is good for infiltration missions and sneaking around, and also just for traversal in general. You can also climb mountaintops and crash within the mountain as well. The visual in Ghost of Tsushima is fantastic. It's probably one of the most beautiful looking games on the PlayStation 4. And there's always leaves and particle effects blowing around in the world, and it looks really good along with the wind that blows. The story in Ghost of Tsushima is great. It has some heartfelt moments, twists and turns, which is something you can expect from a story-driven game. The character of Jin at first, to me, definitely wasn't that interesting, but then the story gets a bit deeper into the philosophies of a samurai and honor. And later on, it started to click with me about Jin's character, and it started to become a bit interesting. I think the supporting cast of the game was good. There maybe could have been more lighthearted moments with the characters and them hanging out and stuff like that, but I think it was a great game. The game shares some similarities with other AAA games, and it may seem at first a little tired, but the differences this game creates with the story and gameplay, being its combat and its traversal, I definitely would recommend it if you haven't bought a PS4 yet. It is definitely a great game. Anyways guys, that was my review of Ghost of Tsushima. I'll catch y'all later. Peace.